She was just taking a shower at home, but the moment she stepped out of the bathroom, a large man suddenly burst into her house. Realizing he meant trouble, the woman immediately ran for the door in terror, but before she could get far, the man grabbed her and dragged her back. She desperately begged for mercy, saying she was pregnant, but the bald man showed no sympathy. Instead, he became even more ruthless. By the time the police finally forced their way inside, the woman was already lying motionless in a pool of blood. Yet when officers pointed their guns at him, the bald man remained unusually calm. He slowly knelt down with his hands on his head. There was even a strange smile on his face. Not long afterward, another officer named Tom arrived at the scene. The moment he saw his wife covered in blood on the floor, he completely broke down. Grief and rage nearly drove him insane. He pulled out his pistol and wanted nothing more than to shoot the monster on the spot. His partner quickly stopped him, because more officers had already arrived. If he pulled the trigger now, he would be breaking the law as a police officer himself. Looking at the bald man who still seemed smug, Tom was left with nothing but endless regret, because this man was Mark, the criminal Tom had personally sent to prison years earlier. But he never imagined that Mark's first act after getting out would be to carry out such a brutal act of revenge. As much as Tom wanted to put him down right there, his partner kept talking him down, and in the end he lowered his gun because of his duty as an officer. But after his wife's death, it felt as if all meaning had vanished from his life. He became withdrawn and broken. The only thing left in his mind was revenge. Then one day, he shaved off the long hair he had worn for years, and quietly loaded every round into his pistol. After finishing, he drove alone to one of Mark's hideouts. Before going in, he called his partner and told him his location. Then without hesitation, he went in by himself. The criminals inside barely had time to react before they fell one after another to Tom's gunfire. Not long later, his partner rushed to the scene. Seeing the bodies everywhere and Tom, who had clearly lost control, he demanded to know why he had done it. But Tom never offered an explanation. He simply dropped his gun and slowly knelt down, allowing himself to be arrested. Soon Tom was sentenced to prison for murder. Only then did people realize that this outcome had been part of his plan all along, because Mark, the man who killed his wife, was being held in the same prison. But what Tom did not expect was that the moment he entered the prison, he was summoned by the warden. It was clear the warden already knew everything about him. He also knew exactly why Tom had come to this prison. The warden warned him without holding back, "You better keep your head down and stay out of trouble. Otherwise you may never make it out of here alive." At the same time, Mark quickly learned that Tom had been locked up, but instead of panicking, he brought a few of his guys and came looking for him. The moment they met, Mark snatched Tom's lunch without a word, then arrogantly warned him that he was the real boss of this prison. After that, Mark swaggered away. Sure enough, not long later, Tom was suddenly attacked by 3 inmates in the laundry room. Even though Tom could handle himself, he was badly outnumbered. Under the non-stop assault, he was quickly pushed to the brink and lost the ability to fight back. After giving him a brutal beating, the curly-haired inmate picked up a knife and was about to finish him off. Luckily, a guard arrived just in time, allowing Tom to barely escape with his life. After leaving the infirmary, a guard named Will approached Tom. The two had once served in the same military unit. Will urged him not to go after Mark, because the guy was not only powerful, but frighteningly smart as well. Not long after arriving in prison, Mark had already made a shady deal with the warden. The two worked hand in hand. Mark kept bringing in profits for the warden, and the warden made sure he stayed protected behind bars. That was exactly why Mark lived like a king inside the prison. Will warned Tom to be careful and not throw his own life away, but Tom paid no attention. Back in his cell, he stared at his wife's photo and finally decided to begin his revenge. He pulled a pen from under his bed, removed the ink tube and sharpened it against the metal frame. Before long, it had a razor-sharp point. Then he casually walked into the shower area and confronted one of the inmates who had attacked him in the laundry room. But the man was surprisingly tough. After pulling out the pen shaft, he used his last bit of strength to slam Tom to the ground. Just as the sharpened point was about to strike him, the inmate lost too much blood and soon collapsed unconscious, never moving again. After that, Tom set his sights on a second target. He suddenly attacked Blackie while he was sweeping, then jammed the broom handle hard against his throat. Blackie struggled desperately, but by now Tom was completely consumed by revenge, giving him absolutely no chance to recover. Meanwhile, Curly quickly learned that 2 men had been taken out one after another. He realized he was probably next. Terrified, he immediately ran to Mark for help, hoping Mark would take care of the problem. Mark agreed. Then he called in his top enforcer, Victor, and ordered him to get rid of Tom. But Victor did not think much of Tom, so he casually handed the job to his younger brother Blackie. That night, a guard deliberately placed Blackie in Tom's cell. Tom sprang to his feet, grabbed the sink and slammed it down without hesitation. Just as Tom was about to finish him, a rushing guard knocked him unconscious with a baton. As a result, Tom was thrown straight into solitary confinement. Meanwhile, Victor rushed to the infirmary. When he saw his brother badly beaten, his anger instantly exploded. He immediately went to Mark, determined to eliminate Tom no matter what. But they had no idea that Tom was no longer planning a simple counterattack. He was preparing something much bigger. He secretly removed a pipe clamp and hid it in his pants, then returned to his cell and attached a sharpened screw to it. After a few modifications, he had created a deadly knuckle weapon. Tom hid behind a door and launched a surprise attack on Curly. Anyone standing in the way of his revenge would receive no mercy from him. By the time the guards arrived, Curly was already gone. Watching his men fall one after another, Mark finally became uneasy. He personally approached the warden and said he would handle Tom himself, but the warden had other plans. He warned Mark to stop causing trouble and focus on making money for him inside the prison. Otherwise someone else could easily replace him. After Mark stormed out in anger, the warden summoned Tom to his office and offered to work with him. It turned out Mark had become harder and harder to control, and the warden wanted to use Tom to put him back in line. This arrangement suited Tom perfectly to avenge his wife. He accepted the offer without the slightest hesitation. Mark could no longer sit still, so he decided to strike in the cafeteria. As soon as he spotted Tom, he quietly pulled out a knife hidden in his hand and began closing in, but Tom sensed something was wrong and suddenly punched a nearby guard. With no choice left, Mark could only watch as Tom was dragged away by other guards. Tom was once again thrown into solitary confinement. During his time there came to see him again. He warned Tom that he now had more than just Mark to worry about. The assault on a guard would also bring retaliation from the others. After saying that, Will tossed Tom a knife and told him he was on his own once he got out. Facing the danger ahead, Tom showed no fear at all. The moment he got out, he went straight after Mark's right-hand man Victor, but Tom didn't take him out immediately. Instead he dragged him above the guards below. A guard was killed on the spot. An inmate nearby immediately grabbed his shotgun. After years of abuse and exploitation by the guards, the inmates could no longer hold back. Without a moment's hesitation, a full-scale riot erupted out of control. Prisoners and guards clashed all over the prison, and all of this was actually the final step of Tom's master plan, because the more chaotic things became, the easier it would be for him to reach Mark and finish his revenge. Before long he had taken down all of Mark's men. At the same time Mark had taken out several guards. Soon the two were fighting once again. Even though Tom gave it everything he had, he still couldn't match Mark. Before long, he was beaten down and unable to fight back. Mark picked up the handgun from the floor and mocked Tom one last time before finishing him off. But just then, Tom suddenly pulled out the knife Will had given him earlier. At last Tom had avenged his wife with his own hands, but the story wasn't over yet, because at that moment, the warden suddenly appeared behind Tom. He thought he would be the one left standing in the end, but at the critical moment, Will arrived with backup. It turned out he had secretly gathered evidence of the warden's crimes, and the prison riot sparked by Tom finally brought the warden to justice. That's the end of the movie. I'm Matt, see you in the next one.